It's time for Done Being Single with your hosts, Trevor and Robbie Sharf. If you're dating the same type over and over again, making the same mistakes and not finding love, then you're not done being single. What you need is some tough love dating intervention, Trevor and Robbie style. Whether you're new to dating or have been dating forever, we've got you covered. Now, here are your hosts, Trevor and Robbie Sharf.
Hi, welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Well,
It's a loaded question, isn't it?
I've had a thing or two happen in
What?
the last week or 5, 7, 8 weeks.
Why don't you let everybody know?
Well, let's see. I lost my father in end of January, and actually both parents got sick kind of together in December. I lost my father in January, and then I just lost my mother last Friday, May 8th. And it is weird and hard. And excuse me for my language, a mind fuck. I'm just gonna say it. It kind of is.
Yeah.
Loss. I don't know loss. I haven't lost anything. I've never even had a pet to lose. So this is a double whammy, and it's really kicking my ass.
But you're doing incredibly well through it all.
I don't know.
I
Am
think
I?
you are. I think, well,
Really?
I think having your mother being ill at the time that your father passed helped you with your grieving of your father, or maybe lack of it. And then over the past few months, since we've been in quarantine and sequestered, we haven't been able to see your mother, which has been difficult, but at the same time has allowed us to, keep some distance. And I think it's probably also helped. And now here we are confronted with her passing.
I feel, and then there's a pandemic, which I tend to forget because I've been so busy, and freaking out with my own stuff for so long that I forget sometimes that we are collectively experiencing sort of a loss in a way. If not real losses, if not people we know that are getting sick and maybe dying, just loss of normal life as we know it. Freedom, I guess, loss of connection and human interaction and love and touch and, all those things that people they've lost. I mean, temporarily, but it's, wow, it's kind of a mind blower for everybody right now.
Yeah, and it is everybody. You're not the only one going through this. And I think that's what has caused us to confront this and not shy away from this as being subject matter for the show. Because you are going through it. We believe that there's many thousands of people that are experiencing similar things of loss. And so they can relate. And I think it's an important topic to address. And I think we have a perfect guest for that as well today.
I think also loss brings up a lot of other things. Wow, it really triggers some stuff. It brings up, it dredges up, it's I'm always a silver lining person, as you know, and I am going to try to get out of this funk, which is normal. I mean, it's, I'm sad. I'm a mix of emotions, but I'm going to see it as an opportunity to learn. I don't know what the lesson is. It better be good, because man, have I gotten some crazy cosmic lesson in the last few months. So yeah, even the pandemic is teaching us lessons about it's testing us. It's challenging us. What are we made of? How strong are we? How really resilient are we? Can we get through this together? Can we survive the isolation? Just that alone, wow. So there are golden moments in all of this for everybody. I think there are takeaways. That's all. That's what I think I'm saying.
One of my favorite sayings is that we are never given anything that we really can't handle, and that is something that I think that is being proven right now, and we're handling it. I think it's very important. We can take it on.
I kind of feel like you and I have been having our own little mini pandemic. Just
how so?
Because of our little microcosm, tragedy, crisis, trauma, whatever you want to call it, within the bigger, crisis.
Yeah. It puts everything in perspective.
Oh boy, does it. But I'll tell you, I know what's the other saying? God doesn't give more than you can handle. Whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Something like that. Yes.
Is that it? Yeah. Well, that sucks because, who wants to be? This is. Listen. Hard lessons are hard lessons, but
yes.
All right. Enough with the hard lessons. That's what I'm saying.
Well, let's talk about our guest today. Who's going to?
I'm so glad this worked out this way. There are no accidents, maybe. Okay, so I don't know how I came across Gay and Katie Hendricks. They were one of our first guests. I think you're one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of have carved a little niche for themselves in the world of fear and self-sabotage and self-limiting beliefs and negative thinking and all my favorites.
Yes. It's your top 10 hits right there.
I love those. And they've been good friends and friends of the show. And I reached back out to them, and I don't know why, but I did. I thought, I feel like now's the time to have them come back on. And so we've got Katie with us today, which is sort of cool because in light of what, my personal stuff I'm going through, I think that she's going to be able to shed a lot of light on also the bigger picture at hand.
Let's bring her on.
Okay, I'm going to read.
Go ahead.
Kathleen Hendricks is an evolutionary catalyst and freelance mentor who has been a pioneer in the field of body intelligence and conscious loving for 50 years. Dr. Hendricks is the co-author of 12 books, including the best-selling Conscious Loving, At the Speed of Life, and Conscious Loving Ever After, How to Create Thriving Relationship at Midlife and Beyond. She specializes in translating concepts such as commitment into directly felt experiences that lead to new choices and creative engagement. Her unique coaching and leadership programs have generated hundreds of body intelligence and relationship coaches in the U.S. and Europe. She's currently joining with her leadership community through the Foundation for Conscious Living to create the Big Leap Online programs. These online videos are designed to support people in coming home to presence, restoring resourcefulness, and creating caring communities. Welcome back, Katie Hendricks, returning champ.
Hi, Katie. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Applause.
Applause. There we go. So sorry.
Hi, Katie. How are you?
It's a pleasure to be here with you. And I think there's one thing that I've already learned from the pandemic is that the next moment is completely unknown. That from day to day, we really don't know what is going to happen. And although we humans like to have the illusion that we have everything under control, we're really learning how little we really do actually control and how to be with ourselves in that, in the unknown is really one of the big discoveries of this time.
And the hardest for people like me.
Well, hard for people who really pride themselves in being able to organize and create and get things done and not let anything get in your way. Well, we've had this huge everything getting in our way here. So the who am I? Who are you without your familiar roles? And where do you find your value and how do you connect? And especially when your structure, the structure of what your parents created for you, when that leaves, for me, the experience was that I'm now at the prow of the ship. There's nobody in front of me. So I'm at the prow of the ship and the ship is moving through life, but there's nobody that's gonna protect me or tell me how it works. And So being like, I'm it, that's really an extraordinary experience. And I don't think it should be rushed through, Trevor. I think it's a really kind of luminous time where you really experience that the veil between life and death is extraordinarily thin.
Yeah.
And it's only when someone dies that you realize you've been kind of going along in this illusion that, you know, life continues forever and everything is fine, but you realize that it can just in a second. And that, I think, gives us a profound opportunity to learn, but also to let ourselves be rewoven into the larger web of life, where we realize that we can get support from watching the sunlight through the trees, and that the life of a flower can then really show us the cycles of life and death. And there's just so much available to you right now that I really encourage you to let yourself be with what is arising. One of the big things that we learned from our experiences of death, particularly of parents, is that feelings and grief comes in waves. And all you need to do is to ride the wave when it arises.
Mm-hmm.
And it will come through. It doesn't mean that's going to be the last wave, but what I found on the heels of the wave of really letting myself experience the actual felt losing and the experience in my body, if I let myself experience that, what followed was expanded creativity. And I could feel that creativity moves through all of us all the time, but mostly we stop it and try to control it, and we make some things wrong. But when you're in the wave of grief and you're just on the wave, that wave leaves in you this openness to life and to what wants to be created through you. It's a kind of polishing process, I have found. And you're, still really at the beginning of the wave. And so my sense is there are really all kinds of gifts for you, as well as the sadness and all of the other feelings of loss.
It's coming. I mentioned earlier, things are coming up, and it's not traditional. It's weird. It's not kind of traditional sadness. It's triggering fear. There's some, and I think the fear is connected to loss of control.
That makes total sense, of
and
course.
Which is a feeling I'm familiar with, and I work very hard at keeping control, which I have been working on since I was a little girl.
Yeah.
Because in a lot of ways, I felt, because I'm an only child, both parents were working, I'm a latchkey child. This is not kind of new to me, but in a way, it's really pushing those control buttons in me, because I like to pride myself on having control at all times.
Yeah, I can handle it.
And And I'm sorry, there is no control here for pretty much any of us. We can't really control, come on, no one can control anything really at the end of the day.
Well, we have in our book, in several of our books, but in Conscious Loving Ever After, we talk about what we call sorting the two files. And it's a practice that I use every day, especially since the pandemic. And what it has to do with is that each of us have two files. One is enormous, could fill this room. And that file is called Things I Absolutely Cannot Control or Influence. And we forget that we also have a small but very important file that's called Things I Actually Can Control or influence. And when we confuse those two things, we spend all of our energy in things that we actually don't have any control over. And we ignore the file called Things I Can Control or Influence. So with with a death and a loss, you don't have any control over your feelings, but you can influence how you respond to your feelings arising.
Right.
So you can express them, you can share them with someone that you love, you can do what we call bodifying them and let yourself really experience them, you can express them. So there are things that we can change or influence. Like in the pandemic, all of the things that are going on, where do you want to put your attention? Well, what I do is I put my attention every day on something that I can actually influence. I can make a donation to a particular kind of organization. I've been supporting planting trees because what's gotten lost in the pandemic is part of what created the pandemic is our negligence in the climate crisis. So your every day, I find if I'm choosing things that I can influence, that it gives me a sense of agency, that I can choose, I can make a difference, I can influence. But if I'm in the, then I don't really use my own resourcefulness.
I like that plan. And I think even Robbie, and Robbie's probably one of the most steady, measured, level, doesn't have giant,
I try not to.
But I think a sense of routine, keeping a little structure right now, is really helpful because it'll, like you said, it gives you a sense of agency, and it doesn't, I don't know, don't you feel like having the little, the habits or the
Absolutely. Very
little
important.
routines that you have.
Maintain the routine as much as you can. This is not going to be our forever. This is going to be, it's a temporary thing, we hope. And when we get out of it, those routines should be in place, and nothing's going to be too drastic of a change during it or after it. So that's my thought.
Well, what I was hearing too, Treva and Robbie, is that your sense of control that you had as a child was in response to your not feeling the safety of a structure. And then routines give us a sense of there is a structure. There is something that's holding me. I'm not just floating out in space with no anchor. And I don't know if you all have seen the movie Gravity, but it's the image when she's just held by her oxygen cord and she's floating out there. To me, was the most vivid image of what we all feel at core, is that I'm just out here in space all by myself. And that sense of having connection with other people and connection with routines creates a sense of safety for us, because the fear right now, we've been in a fear-mongering environment really since 9/11. So almost 20 years now there's been this. And that low level of chronic fear that most people experience all the time, so much that they're not aware of it, keeps people from actually being able to choose. Because there are two main things that happen when you're in fear. One is that you can't think, because you lose your problem-solving brain. You go back into your reptilian brain, where everything is about territory and safety and who's in control. And you also, in fear, other people become the enemy. Mm. We other people, because that gives us some sense of control, and it goes way, way back in our wiring. So dealing with fear is really wrapped around everything that's going on right now, because when we're in fear, we're not able to connect either with ourselves or with others. And so dealing with fear, befriending fear, what I call befriending fear, because we can't conquer it. We got to really turn toward it and befriend it. And then that liberates the energy that's tied up in fear so that we can use it. First, I want to let everybody know that we have dozens of free resources on one of our websites. We have hendricks.com, but we also have the Foundation for Conscious Living. And we've created over the last 2 years, very timely, we've created one track is called Unlocking the Fear Code and Accessing Essence Power. And I can say more about that because we have body intelligence tools, including fear melters, to assist you to befriend fear so that you're not caught in fear. You can make choices, you can connect. And we also have free videos about coming home to yourself, restoring resourcefulness, and creating caring community. So there are an abundance of resources for viewers, and I'd love for you to go there and track around and let yourself sample some of the things that are available. But at a very fundamental level, when you're in fear, you're not going to be breathing fully and you're not going to be moving freely. So breathing gets caught and movement gets caught, and then from there you get separate from yourself and you get separate from others, and then that makes the fear escalate even more. So what I invented, what I call fear melters, are very simple movements that shift you from fear to here. So it's kind of a doorway where you can go from the fear cave out into open space where you can actually make choices. So they're not a panacea, but they are a reliable shift move so that you can begin to feel your own ability to respond rather than just react from fear. And so if you'd like, I can show you how to do those. They're also on video, but I can show you very quickly. You can try on. I'm imagining you look, Trevor, like you freeze when you're in fear. There are 4 expressions of fear. People usually are familiar with fight or flight, but they're not familiar with the other 2. So there's fight and flee and freeze and faint. And I think faint is the big one that's going on right now, because faint is when you feel like you've just sort of gone underwater and you get kind of confused and your energy just drains and you feel overwhelmed. And I think many people are feeling really overwhelmed right now. Yeah. So the fear melters literally unfreeze you and thaw you out so that you can find yourself and go, oh, here I am. You can feel the safety of being present with yourself.
So fight, flight, flee, and faint?
And so fight, flee, freeze, and faint.
Freeze.
So I'll just do them with you quickly so you can try them out and other people can try them out. So fight is what we often confuse with anger. Fight is that, where and I'm imagining that was part of what goes on for you as well, is that fight, I can handle it, I got it. But it is a kind of you got your chin out. Now the fear melter is what I call oozing. So if you try that out, you'll notice that you cannot fight when you're oozing. Oozing is like experiencing yourself as seaweed in water or hot fudge over ice cream. And what I notice is that, that we get in our upper bodies begins to dissolve, and I'm able to notice what's going on in me and what's going on around me. So that's fight and ooze. And then flee is the whole, I'm out of here, move. But most people don't just run, like running away from the tiger, because we can't do that as much as we used to be able to in the old days. But people can leave while still being here. Like you can do it by just moving your shoulder back or moving back yourself or letting your eyes glaze over where you're kind of parked, but you're not actually there. So you can also, a lot of what's been going on recently is that people flee up. They flee up into their heads and start to analyze and flee away from their bodies and their feelings. Mm-hmm. So fleeing up, and also fleeing forward. So what if this pandemic never ends? We create that kind of flee both going up and going forward, as well as I'm out of here. And the fear melter for flee is something we call sumo. And you can experience that even seated by feeling your feet. Just literally feeling your feet touching the ground. When people are doing a full-on sumo, I'll just stand up and show it to you for a moment. So,
excellent.
The full-on sumo is letting yourself get your legs wide, getting down so that you can feel yourself in your pelvis, and you feel, oh, I'm here. And that also creates a sense of safety. Now, the one that I was seeing in you, which is very common for people, is the freeze. So you can go into a full-on, like the old movie Home Alone, that kind of, but you can also just have a little startle where your body goes just a little freeze. Mm-hmm. And I think that's very, very common right now, that people are a lot in freeze. And what I suggest, because even if you're frozen, what people will often say is, well, just relax. There's nothing to be scared of, just relax. And that usually doesn't work very well. It makes people want to punch you. But you can, even if you're frozen, you can wiggle your fingers and toes. And when you begin to wiggle, you can let that wiggling begin to move through you until you've wiggled yourself. It's like thawing out a popsicle. You wiggle yourself free of that. And I like to wiggle enough that I can actually, you can probably hear it in my voice, when your voice gets wiggly. There's also a mini wiggle that I really love, and I call it face flapping. So if you put your head forward a little bit and you just go, you're really, it's so refreshing for the tension that we hold in our jaws and in our face. So that's freeze and wiggle. And then faint, that sense of getting confused, or having your words disappear, just feeling kind of foggy, that people don't recognize is a faint. And a faint happens when we don't feel that we have any choice, where we're backed into a corner, things just feel overwhelming. And so my sense is that millions of people right now are in faint. Mm-hmm. They just feel like just the onslaught of all of the chaos and the people dying, but also there's nobody. It's like mom and dad have gone AWOL. There's nobody creating structure for us as a country, and so people are, what's going to happen? And so the important thing about faint is that we go passive. And a lot of people wonder, well, why aren't people being more active? Why aren't people fighting back? So that's what people will do, is go from faint to fight. But that just keeps you in fear. And when you're in faint, what really works is to create a pool of love around you and to reach out into that and to bring some love in and give it to yourself. To give yourself, really feeling that, loving yourself, being with yourself. And I also wanted to let you know that during the pandemic, for the last several weeks now, I've been leading a 15-minute live love scoops that people can sign up for. If they go to the foundation, it's totally free, but you can sign up so you get the Zoom link. We do it on Zoom, and we have people from all over the world who's participating in this. And what we do is share, exchanging, giving presents to each other, noticing ourselves, and doing love scoops. And it is absolutely delicious. And when I finish, I feel more connected with myself, more connected with others. And so when you have moved from fear to here, you have choice. You can build choice. So it's not just fear melters, but it's really what I call fear melters plus. So after you've done fear melters, you can take 3 relaxed breaths. So you begin to anchor that in your body. You do fear melters, and then you take a walk in a pace that you can recognize yourself and be aware of what's going on around you. You can do fear melters and then do what I call a pattern interrupt. Don't do the same old thing. Do something different. So if you always get up and then sit down at your computer, get up and put on music and let yourself dance to music. So the balance between structure for safety and interrupting patterns so that you're not getting caught in a reactive loop, that's part of what each of us can create every day. But I have found, and we've shared this with thousands of people now, that fear melters give you an opening to feel your resourcefulness and to be able to build on that. And I blend fear melters into everything. So I say, when in doubt about something, do fear melters. Like if you have a big decision you're needing to make, do fear melters before you make that decision. So you're not making it from your fear head, but you're doing whole body thinking.
That's kind of like Robbie's version of measure twice, cut once.
Yes.
Which he says
exactly.
to me all the time, because I tend to be a little impulsive when I'm coming from a place of fear.
She cuts first and then measures.
And I have to, and it forces me to slow down. I by the way, I just want to tell you, when you said, love yourself, bring in the, feel the
love around you,
bring in the love. I found myself taking a deep breath. I just autonomously.
Yes.
Whatever, when unconsciously, it went, I felt very good. I felt
wonderful
good to sort of feel the love around you and love yourself, because I think fear also brings up a lot of self-hatred and loathing.
They're very close.
Yeah, it makes you feel like you're not strong and you're weak and you're, it makes you beat yourself. This is not the time to do that.
Well, see, I think that the whole, you learned how to be strong because you had to. And that strong and weak, neither of those are really inherent to who we are. We're just simply being here and responding. But when we learn how to be strong, that's generally to cover up something that we're really scared of. I'm scared I'm going to lose connection. I'm scared that I'm going to be all by myself and nobody's going to help me. Mm-hmm. But when we have moved from fear to here, we can ask for support. We can say, oh, I've been feeling like I don't know what to do right now, and I feel scared about that. And when other people hear you, you feel that connection and you can become resourceful. I want to favor resourcefulness rather than strength, because strength, like if you're moving, if you're wanting to pick up a baby, you want to be capable, but you don't want to pick them up strongly. You want to pick them up sensitively. So we want to have access. I want people to have access to the whole continuum, of sensitive and strong, but being flexible so that you can meet life with all of you rather than just with like chopsticks that you learned when you were 5.
I have a question, Katie. So
yeah.
When I witness some of these things, possibly in Treva or her and me, what's the best way for a partner to react when I see fight or I see fear or I want to help her? Or is there a safe word we should have in that regard? Or
words are not going to be helpful. So remember, if I'm scared or you're scared, you can't really think. So one of our discussions that we have on the foundation website is why you can't talk anybody, including yourself, out of being scared. You can never talk somebody out of being scared, but what I can do if I see that someone else is scared, I can presence myself. So I can do little internal wiggles. I can do my own melting, and I can give my attention. I can listen. I can hear what you're saying. I can reflect what I'm seeing from what you're saying. But if I become present, I've moved out of fear, then somebody else can osmose with me. So I become the bigger space that other people can, just like you were taking a breath, Trevor, when we were doing the fear melters. If you're presencing yourself, it makes it available for others, because presence is as contagious as fear. So if I'm presencing, then I'm able to, I can feel that you're in fear, but you're also, you have much more going on than just the fear, and you begin to get access to it.
But what happens if, because I actually feel as if I practice a certain amount of that already if confronted with some things. And if that doesn't work, if the osmosis is not getting across to her, what is the next step so I can get her to see herself and melt?
Right. So now we're getting into the underlying relationship issue, which is trying to control your partner. Mm. So one of the things that I learned, Gay and I have been together for 40 years now.
Correct.
And sure.
That was great. Go ahead. Now you hit it. Nail on head. Very good. Control your partner. Yep. Continue.
And it is one of the dynamics that really needs to be explored in every relationship, is that if I learned about 25 years ago that there was no aspect of Gay that I actually had any control over. So he belonged in that big file called things I cannot change or control. So the small file is saying what's true. I feel scared that I'm not going to be able to help you. I'm experiencing that urge to tell you what to do. I'm making up a story. One thing that we recommend for people, it's very helpful, is that you identify what's going on in your mind rather than assuming that the other can read your mind. So I'm making up a story that you need help, but you're not letting me help you. And you identify it as my story. Because that whole getting over into the other person's business is one of the most popular things to do in relationships. It goes on a lot. But what it prevents is any creativity, any agency of you're really saying, I'm here with you, and what are you discovering? What is it that you want to learn? What's going on for you, and how can I be with you in that? Which is very different than, I got to get you out of this mood that you're in right now, or I got to make you feel better. But it's a profound learning. And we see people go through the lessons of it, very regularly, many, many times a day. But it really has to do with, I have no control over you. And when you don't control your other people, just imagine what you can do with all that free energy. You can appreciate your partner. You can share your own feelings. You can put your intention into a creative project that you're working on. So if you're not monitoring your partner, you liberate a huge amount of energy.
How do you take that energy that's just been liberated and not feel frustrated that you can't affect change, or that you can't help, or, how do you, because I know Robbie's an extremely solutions-oriented person.
Yes.
And I appreciate that in him.
Thank goodness we have those people.
Because I sometimes lose my, sort of the path, and he keeps me on it. Our systems are different.
Yes.
We're wired differently. I must say that, at least a few times a month. We're wired differently. We have different approaches to conflict management or to our solutions. And I don't want him to feel like that he's not doing the job just because.
Well, see, that's another thing that you have no control over. So you don't want him to feel So you have no control over his feelings. His feelings are his feelings. So, you've landed on, I think, which is really the crux of relationship issues for so many people, is we get over into other people's business. So we've learned that people get into relationship. A huge amount of what we're here to do is to learn from the people we choose to get in relationship with. But then when the learning arises, we go, wait a minute, I didn't sign up for this. You're not operating the way I think you should be. But the big shift that Gay and I made that has made all of the difference is that we use every relationship interaction as an opportunity to learn. You're wired up differently, and thank goodness. So you can, if you were both the same, there wouldn't be this opportunity to expand your own repertoire. So Gay and I, I'm, as you can probably imagine, I'm a great feeler. And Gay is an extraordinary visionary and thinker. And when we first got together, we were like on different planets, because I could feel what he was talking about, but he would think about what I was expressing rather than feeling what I was expressing. So making the choice and making the commitment to learn from each other has really opened up our relationship to be a path of discovery rather than a control battle. So from Gay, I've really learned how to speak about my experience, because I had all this internal experience, but when I first met Gay, I couldn't really articulate it. And I learned from really studying how he could take something and make a topic sentence and then expand it and then summarize it. I began to learn how to express what was going on inside. And Gay has learned from me a whole new avenue of inspiration, which is what's going on in this vast interior frontier rather than just what's going on up here. So they're tremendous, and I think lifelong benefits from seeing your partner as a partner and as a learning ally rather than as the battle of who's going to be in charge. And when you're battling, what you get is drama. And that drama, that adrenaline, that ha ha ha, I'm being right, is what most people mistake for actual passion and interaction. But when you are authentic and you're both taking responsibility and you're both appreciating, you liberate creativity and you liberate co-creativity. And Gay and I actually think that creativity is the only force in the universe that's more powerful than adrenaline. Because right now everybody's running on adrenaline. And so that's why we use the fear melters as well.
I'd say that all the time. I feel like I've been on adrenaline autopilot. And
it's exhausting.
It's so exhausting, and it's going to take a minute to wind down.
Well, it does, but because most people are using adrenaline as their fuel, they escalate.
Yeah.
Because adrenaline is not renewable.
Yeah.
See, creativity is renewable. That act of letting something move through you and come into being, that is renewable. And you can grow your ability to create, to co-create, to be a source of creativity for others. But adrenaline simply drains the reservoir.
I would also, just from personal experience, say that adrenaline keeps you from feeling your deeper stuff.
Absolutely. It keeps you up here.
You up here.
Yeah.
And it doesn't allow you to connect with really what might be going on. It prevents you from facing your fear. It's like your body's, coping mechanism. I get it. I'm in it right now, but I'm looking forward actually to the adrenaline levels lowering so that I can get more peace with what my feelings are and feel it, as opposed to keeping it away. And maybe this is my body's response to protecting. This is self-preservation for me so that I'm not devastated. I don't know. This is what I mean by my.
You aren't going to know because you're right in the middle of grieving.
Right.
There's no way to know. And that was a little flee up that you just did. So you fleed up into trying to analyze what was going on with you. So that lets me know and can let you know that you're trying to operate from within fear. So one thing for everybody to know is that it takes 2 minutes of fear melters to change your physiology.
Yeah.
So one thing I recommend for you is several times a day, just put on a song that you really like and let yourself do fear melters for 2 to 3 minutes.
Okay.
And you'll feel it, the reset,
Yeah.
where you've turned adrenaline into aliveness. And you're filling your inner reservoir with resourcefulness rather than that adrenaline reactivity.
Yeah. It's anxiety is not healthy. It's not productive.
Well, anxiety, that's what's going on right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And no matter how much you say, well, this shouldn't be going on right now, or that doesn't work. You can't talk yourself out of it. But you can, by simply moving and breathing, you can restore your presence. And your presence then gives you an opening
Right.
to feel connection and to do something more.
Is really, I do a lot of breath work, and I incorporate it into my meditation.
Great.
Oh my gosh, just taking huge deep breaths from the belly on up to the top of the lungs is like so restorative. And it's
exactly
almost like a little anti-anxiety drug. You give yourself.
It is. There's science behind that.
Yeah, I depend on it. And when that's what I said, felt myself taking a deep breath when you said
yes.
love. See, I did it again. Okay.
Katie, we have to wrap up our show, but boy, this has been so wonderful and restorative for both of us, I think. Tell us how we can find you online.
Well, thank you. And thank you so much for sharing yourself authentically. I think it's of tremendous value for people to know that in the midst of all of this, we can be with what is actually happening. And we don't have to try to pull ourselves together. So we have 2 websites and a Facebook page. We have Hendricks.com, which is Hendricks. And we have our relationship work primarily on Hendricks.com. We also have our nonprofit is the Foundation for Conscious Living. And that's where we have dozens of videos and ways to support yourself in all of this anxiety that's going on right now. So I recommend both of those. We also have a Facebook page called Hearts in True Harmony. So if you go to Facebook, you can also get to it through typing Gay and Katie Hendricks, and you'll come to it. And we have relationship tips every day, ways for you to connect with yourself and your partner, and also relationship videos that you can get. So we've been around for a long time. We have a large body of work, and we're doing our best to make it available to people so that everyone can use it during this challenging time.
Great.
Thank you. Our best to Gay and yourself, of course. And
we love having you.
Yes.
Especially right
Thank you so much.
Forward to having you both on again. And
where can people find us?
They can find us at donebeingsingle.com and Done Being Single on Facebook and Twitter.
Okay. And social media, we are at Done Being Single pretty much everywhere.
And you can write us at Treva and Robbie at donebeingsingle.com.
And I want to thank you, Lovey. Any minute I can to thank you for your support and love. You've been instrumental in continuing to help me get through this time.
I'm happy to be here for you.
Thank you. I would also just like to say to everybody, you said something about feeling your feet. Katie's right. I once had a coach, I don't remember where, tennis, volleyball, track, a coach said to me, because I would get like up here, I would be so nervous and just have all of this fear and anxiety. And he said, feel your feet. Bring the energy down, bring it down, feel your feet. And it does work.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Do that.
Well, many blessings to you, and thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Katie.
Stay safe, healthy, and we'll see you soon.
I'm Shadow Stevens with my friends Trevor and Robbie. See you next week on Done Being Single.